You know, it's kind of hard to believe that it's been 2 years since I looked at the 21 Jump Street reboot. I mean, look at this. There I am with my long, messy ponytail, shooting in my bedroom, sitting directly under the light so you have the nasty shadow under my eyes, under my chin, and onto my shirt, trying my best to keep my bed out of frame even though you can see the knocked out Judo Domo plushie my sister gave me sitting right there in the background. You see the ratty looking Dragon Ball and Simpsons posters. Yeah, a lot has changed since then. One, I've gotten a hell of a lot better at lighting myself and keeping myself in frame. My skills as a critic have also gotten a lot better since I'm no longer shooting from the hip as much. I mean, yeah, opinions are still opinions. I've just gotten a lot better at doing this job. And thirdly, my rating system's also gotten a little bit more refined. In the past, it was just kind of just generic, like 1 through 5 sort of rating like all the other critics, whereas here I can actually tie it to specific criteria. I don't know if I made a video addressing that. I might need to make a new one for those who aren't familiar with it, but to basically give you the long story short version of it, it's more of a technical rating than it is an actual like gauge of a good film overall. I mean, yeah, it is a gauge of quality, but it's more tied to the more technical aspects of filmmaking based on my knowledge, given that I've been studying film for a long time. And as you can also plainly see, I have a lot less hair. Here are the statements that I'm going to make in this very brief moment in order to hopefully answer some questions about why I shaved my head. Anyway, you may recall that I gave my review of the 21 Jump Street reboot, and it was a pretty favorable one. Even in the headline of the original article, I said it was a loyal homage to the 80s. Well, after shooting that video, I checked out some episodes of the TV series. I can see why fans were pissed. I mean, the original 21 Jump Street was a straightforward cop drama with a unique premise of it being undercover teenagers. Whereas the movie reboot was just Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill goofing about for 2 hours. Now, while the filmmakers may not necessarily be loyal to the source material, at the very least, they're loyal to their own concept. My expectations were pretty low going in since the trailers made this film look like a complete retread of its predecessor. Not only is it a retread, but they also tried to do a little bit of a role reversal, with Jonah Hill's character this time being the responsible police officer, and Channing Tatum being the, oh, I'm gonna get the second chance and goof off sort of cop. And really, it worked in some ways, but one of the reasons it really didn't work is that it was missing kind of the fish out of water concept, kind of the major disconnect that we had in the previous film. I mean, we had the whole old guard, new guard depictions of teenagers literally clashing, and that was one of the major facets of comedy, and that's also what made the whole idea of them accidentally switching the identities and getting placed in the wrong classes actually work. But here, while the college is unfamiliar territory for both of our main characters, the fish out of water concept is pretty much lost. The fact that this film is basically the not as strong sequel to its predecessor is not lost on the people making this film. I mean, literally an appropriate tagline I would have given this would be even more lampshades than the previous one. I mean, they had the whole Ron Offerman doing kind of the moderate fourth wall joke, poking fun of the fact that it's a sequel. They poke fun of the fact of how studios might try to keep things going as a full franchise, and they even poke fun at the various careers of both Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum. I mean, they even made reference to White House Down. I was surprised they did, but then again, not really. It was just definitely a case of a lot of subtle fourth wall jokes, not so much them breaking the fourth wall, but a lot of jokes that would only make sense to people in this time period who were aware of what came out. So this film is not necessarily that timeless in its humor when it comes to those jokes. On a related note, this film definitely put a lot more focus on the comedy this time around than its predecessor, because while the previous film had its fair share of drama, here the drama is incredibly downplayed, but in some cases is also just mostly being used for comedic effect. That said, some of the jokes poking fun of the drama worked pretty well, others held on for a little bit longer than it needed to. Also, the film decided to derive a good chunk of its humor by giving itself an artificial case of the not gays. Pretty much they attempted to parallel Janko and Schmidt's partnership with a romantic relationship. And now, there were 2 scenes where it worked really well, but it's also a source of a lot of the weaker jokes of the film. I mean, it kind of felt like that if the filmmakers had their way, they probably would have had Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill effectively saying no homo every other line. And really, again, there were 2 scenes where it worked really well, and so they really should have just made their one or two good punches and then just called it good instead of continuing to kind of flail about awkwardly once they get past the defenses. From a technical standpoint, there's not really that much to say. It's put together really well and actually uses some of the technical aspects to kind of reinforce the meta humor that the film would be best known for. I mean, they do poke fun at the fact of how expensive some films are to make. It doesn't quite go as far as, say, The Other Guys in a few places, but it at least was a nice nod saying, oh, we're not going to just rely solely on dialogue jokes, we're going to kind of use the visuals to add to the humor as well. And so that was definitely a nice touch to the film. Overall, this film is pretty much a good follow-up to its predecessor. It's a good sequel to the 21 Jump Street reboot. And really, at this point, there's no point in trying to make any real comparisons between the movie and the TV show because it's obvious they've kind of gone off in their own direction. And so really, if you liked the previous film, you'll probably enjoy this one as well. That said, the ending sequence of this film is one of the most balls-out ways to jump the shark and effectively declare that you have no plans to make any more films I have ever seen on screen. I mean, this sequence, you think they're just like, oh yeah, we're just gonna make these jokes, but then it just keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. And it almost makes sitting through the 2 hours of weaker jokes almost worth it because you just see it keep going and you're just like, wow, there you really do not want to make any more movies because, I mean, how the hell are you gonna follow up with that? And yeah, like I said, if you liked the previous film, if you liked the 21 Jump Street reboot, you will definitely like this film since it's pretty much more of the same. Some weaker stuff about it, much like other sequels where the sequel isn't quite as strong, but for the most part, it's an entertaining action comedy. If you go in expecting that, you won't be disappointed. That said, I give 22 Jump Street a 4 out of 5. So that's it for this episode of Romney's Reviews. Tune in next week for my review of Jersey Boys. See ya then.